I came home one evening to find my fiancée's suitcase half-packed by the door. She looked at me with the kind of rehearsed sadness you see in movies and said she needed time to think. No fight, no tears, just that one line dropped like a grenade in the middle of our life together. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the suitcase. It wasn't a breakup, not yet. It was worse, a pause, a cliffhanger, an unfinished sentence. And in that unfinished silence, everything shifted. My name is Michael Carter, 36 years old, financial consultant based out of Denver. I've always been the kind of man who planned everything. College, career, mortgage, retirement accounts. Order and discipline were how I lived my life. But that night, standing in the doorway of the home I had worked so hard to build, order collapsed. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just nodded once and said I understood. She looked almost disappointed, like she had been waiting for a fight that never came. Inside, though, the gears of my mind were already turning. I had learned long ago that panic was useless. I'd been raised by a father who believed in quiet strength, the kind that doesn't make noise but leaves an impact. So I said nothing more. That night, when she went to stay with a friend, I sat in the living room surrounded by silence and the faint smell of her perfume, and I opened a notebook. 3 words went down on the first page. Watch. Wait. Act. The next days unfolded like a test of endurance. She sent me a few texts, vague updates about needing space, about finding clarity. I kept my responses minimal, one-word acknowledgments. Meanwhile, I watched. I checked our joint accounts, our credit cards, our shared calendar. Patterns began to emerge. She wasn't just staying with a friend. There were dinners charged to a card she rarely used, restaurants across town I'd never been invited to. Lift rides that ended near an apartment building I didn't recognize. 2 weeks later, the truth landed like a punch I had seen coming but still felt in my gut. A mutual friend, someone who hadn't realized I was still in the dark, sent me a photo. My fiancée, sitting across from her ex at a rooftop bar, laughing like the last 2 years of our life together hadn't happened. In that moment, something inside me hardened. It wasn't anger in the loud, explosive sense. It was colder, sharper. A decision. I didn't confront her. I didn't send messages or demand explanations. I simply began my quiet execution. I pulled records from our accounts, noting every expense, every detail that might matter later. I reviewed the mortgage, the deed, the assets that were legally in my name. I moved methodically, like a soldier preparing for a mission. Every form signed, every file copied, every piece of evidence stored. She thought she had time to figure out her heart. What she didn't know was that I was already rewriting the ending. The weight of betrayal wasn't something I showed. To the outside world, I was calm, polite, steady. But inside, I was dismantling the life we had built piece by piece, planning each move like a chess player who knows checkmate is only a matter of time. She believed she had control. She believed I would wait. What she didn't understand was that silence is its own kind of weapon, and I was ready to use it. I didn't tell her that I knew. When she came by the house to grab more clothes, she moved through the rooms like a visitor, careful not to look me in the eye. She repeated the same line, that she still needed time, that she wasn't ready to make decisions. I just nodded, the same as before, and carried a box to her car. To her, it looked like compliance. To me, it was confirmation. She thought I was waiting. In truth, I was calculating. That night, I opened my laptop and started gathering every digital trace of our life together. Joint bank statements, utility bills, mortgage documents, insurance policies. Every detail went into folders marked and duplicated onto a drive that I locked in a fireproof safe. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. She had already taken enough. Over the following week, I tested the waters. Small actions, nothing dramatic. I met with a realtor under the pretense of evaluating the market. I asked discreet questions at the bank about equity lines and refinancing. I even called a moving company, just to understand the logistics of what it would take to clear out everything in one day. The pieces were lining up, one by one. The silence between us grew louder. Her texts dwindled, and I stopped replying altogether. I could imagine her telling her ex that I was passive, predictable, easy to handle. They probably laughed about it. That was fine. Let them laugh. It made the next phase easier. I remember one Friday evening in particular. I sat on the back porch with a beer, staring at the fence I had built with my own hands. Every nail, every board was mine. And yet, She thought she could walk away and still claim half of it. The audacity of it almost amused me. Almost. I had already decided that she would come back to an empty space, stripped of every comfort she had once taken for granted. But timing mattered. Selling a house, liquidating assets, moving furniture. It all had to be invisible until the moment it wasn't. So I waited. And in that waiting, I became sharper, colder. My silence wasn't just restraint, it was control. 2 weeks after that rooftop photo, I had everything in place. The realtor had buyers lined up. The bank had paperwork ready. The moving company was on standby. All I had to do was choose the day. She still thought she had the upper hand. She still believed that I was sitting at home, waiting for her to decide if I was enough. What she didn't know was that by the time she came back, the house itself wouldn't even be here anymore. The plan was set. The trap was ready. And her shock would be the only answer I ever gave her. The day I chose wasn't random. It was a Wednesday, the kind of midweek lull when people are distracted by their routines. She had texted me the night before, a short line about hoping I was doing okay. I didn't respond. By morning, the moving trucks were already pulling into the driveway. I had spent hours labeling boxes, stripping our life into categories. Furniture, electronics, personal documents, even the kitchenware. The movers worked quickly, efficient and quiet, just as I had asked. They didn't know the story, and I didn't offer one. To them, it was just another job. To me, it was the dismantling of a lie. By noon, the house was hollow. The walls echoed with each step I took. The family photos were gone, the bookshelves empty, the rooms stripped bare. I stood in the middle of the living room, remembering the first night we moved in together, the promises we made about a future we thought we wanted. All of it was gone now, boxed and waiting in storage under my name only. The realtor arrived at 1. She carried a clipboard, professional and brisk. She walked through each room, nodding at the clean slate. She didn't ask questions about why I was selling so suddenly. She didn't need to. Papers were signed at the kitchen counter where my fiancé once talked about color palettes and furniture choices. The ink was still drying when I placed the keys into the realtor's hands. By 3 o'clock, the house wasn't ours anymore. It was mine, and then it was gone. The bank transfer went through smoothly, a sum that made me realize just how much I had secured by acting first. Money she thought she was entitled to was now locked in an account under my sole control. I didn't leave notes. I didn't leave explanations. The silence was deliberate, sharp, final. She would return expecting to find the familiar, only to discover a void where her future had once been. That image alone kept me steady, focused. Driving away, the moving trucks trailing behind me, I felt no guilt, only clarity. Betrayal has a way of burning away illusions, leaving only hard truth behind. And the truth was simple. She had made her choice with her ex. I had made mine with quiet precision. By sunset, everything was secured. Storage locked. Bank account updated. House sold. My phone buzzed with another message from her, a casual line about meeting soon to talk. I turned the screen face down on the passenger seat and kept driving. She wanted time to think. I had already finished the thought for her. 2 days passed before she realized something was wrong. Her first call came in the afternoon, while I was sitting in a diner on the far side of town. Her name lit up my phone screen, but I didn't answer. I let it ring, watched it go to voicemail, and left it there. Silence was my reply. By evening, there were 3 more missed calls. A text followed, short, almost casual. She asked if I was at home, said she wanted to stop by and talk. I didn't respond. I could picture her pulling into the driveway, walking up to the front door, key in hand. And then that door opening into an empty house. No furniture, no photos, nothing left but walls and echoes. That night, the voicemails changed. The calm tone was gone. Her voice had urgency now, almost panic. She asked what was going on, why the house was empty, where everything had gone. She said she deserved an explanation. I listened to none of it. I just deleted each message, one after the other, until my inbox was clean again. The next morning, she tried calling from another number. I recognized her voice before she even said her name. She demanded to know what I had done, accused me of overreacting, of being cruel. I hung up without a word. Silence was sharper than any argument I could have given. By midday, she sent a string of messages. She said she had been confused, that she never meant to hurt me, that she only needed time to figure things out. Then came the excuses. It wasn't what it looked like. Her ex was just a friend. She hadn't crossed any lines. lies dressed up as explanations. I read each one and said nothing. That evening, a final message came through. It was shorter than the rest. She said she didn't recognize me anymore, that I was being heartless, that I wasn't the man she thought I was. She was right. I wasn't the same man she had taken for granted. She had underestimated the weight of silence, the kind that doesn't beg or argue, but dismantles everything in its path. I turned off my phone and set it aside. For the first time in weeks, the air around me felt clean. The noise was gone. The panic was hers now, not mine. The power had shifted, and she knew it. By the weekend, her silence had cracked into desperation. She showed up at my office unannounced, waiting by the lobby desk like a stranger who had lost her way. The receptionist told me she'd been there for almost an hour, asking to see me. I walked past her without slowing down. She called my name, but I kept moving until the elevator doors closed between us. That evening, more messages flooded in. She said we could fix this, that she was willing to work on things if I just gave her another chance. The words were familiar, polished, the kind of promises people make when they realize their safety net is gone. I read them all, then archive them, storing them like data points. Nothing more. The truth was, I didn't need her words anymore. I already had the evidence, the photos, the dates, the receipts. I knew where she had been, who she had chosen, and what she had risked. My silence wasn't punishment, it was confirmation. She had written the ending the night she sat across from her ex, smiling like our life together had never mattered. A few days later, she tried another angle. She called mutual friends, painting herself as the victim. She told them I had disappeared without explanation, that I had sold the house out of spite. Some of them reached out to me, confused, asking if I was okay. I gave them the same response every time: I'm fine. Nothing more. My refusal to explain only added weight to her panic. The story she was spinning couldn't hold without my cooperation. One night, long after midnight, my phone lit up with her number again. The voicemail that followed was different. No anger, no excuses, just a quiet voice asking me to meet, saying she wanted closure. I deleted it without listening to the end. Closure was something she wasn't entitled to. By then, I had moved into a new apartment downtown. Minimalist. Clean. A space untouched by her presence. The boxes from the old house sat stacked in a storage unit, waiting for me to decide what to keep and what to leave behind. Each time I walked past them, I felt no nostalgia, no regret. Only a reminder of what silence had bought me. She had wanted time to think. She had gotten it. But in that time, I had done more than think. I had acted. Quietly, methodically, completely. And every move I made pulled her further out of the life she once assumed she controlled. The balance was gone now. She was reaching, scrambling for pieces that no longer existed. And I was watching, steady and unmoved. From a distance, she could never close again. Her pressure didn't stop, it only changed shape. The texts turned into long paragraphs, written late at night, words spilling across the screen like confessions. She claimed she had been confused, that seeing her ex had been a mistake, that she realized now how much she wanted our future together. She wrote about the wedding we had planned, about the family she still pictured, about the memories she couldn't walk away from. Each word was heavy with intent, designed to draw me back in. I didn't answer a single one. Silence has a way of echoing louder than speech. Each time she reached out and found nothing on the other end, it pushed her deeper into panic. I saw it in the way her messages shifted from pleading to accusing, from regretful to angry. She accused me of betrayal, said I was cruel, claimed I had blindsided her. But we both knew the truth. The only betrayal had happened long before I sold the house. One afternoon, I returned to my new apartment to find an envelope wedged under the door. Her handwriting. Inside, a letter, written in pen, shaky and rushed. She said she had gone to the house, that she had walked through the empty rooms, and that the silence there felt unbearable. She begged for a chance to explain in person. She promised she wasn't with him anymore, that she had realized what she stood to lose. I folded the letter once and slid it into a drawer. It stayed there, untouched, a reminder of what desperation looks like on paper. Meanwhile, I focused on the parts of my life she could no longer reach. The money from the house sat secure in an account under my name only. The storage unit held every possession worth keeping, cataloged and locked. My job kept me grounded, steady, while she unraveled in the space I had left behind. Friends started to notice the change in her. One mutual acquaintance told me she seemed scattered, restless, unable to focus. She was talking too much, trying to control the narrative, explaining away things that no one had even asked her about. It was the kind of panic that builds when the ground has shifted under someone's feet and they realize too late they have no balance. I didn't need to argue with her. I didn't need to justify what I had done. She was unraveling on her own, and all I had to do was watch. That was the strength of silence. It didn't just protect me. It dismantled her. By the third week, her life was visibly cracking. Friends told me she had moved back in with her parents for a while, claiming it was temporary, claiming she needed support. She had gone from posting cheerful pictures on social media to silence, then to vague quotes about betrayal and second chances. She wanted sympathy, but the story never added up. Too many people had already seen her out with her ex, too many had questions she couldn't answer. She tried to bait me again, sending photos of places we used to go, asking if I remembered, asking if I ever thought about what we had built together. Each message was an attempt to pull me back into her orbit. I let them sit unread until they disappeared into the archive. Silence was my answer every time. Meanwhile, I tightened every loose end. The last utility bills were closed. The final checks cleared. The storage unit was organized into 3 neat sections: keep, sell, donate. Each weekend I chipped away at it until the past was reduced to boxes and decisions. Nothing she could touch, nothing she could claim. One evening, as I was leaving work, I saw her waiting by the parking garage. Her eyes looked hollow, her makeup smudged like she had been crying before I arrived. She stepped forward, trying to stop me. Her voice cracked as she asked why I was doing this, why I wouldn't even let her explain. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, unlocked my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, she was still standing there, frozen in disbelief that silence could cut sharper than any insult. That night, the messages turned darker. She accused me of ruining her life, said she had nothing left, said I had destroyed everything. But it wasn't my actions that had broken her. It was her choices. She had chosen doubt, chosen betrayal, chosen to test how far she could push me. Now she was finding out the cost. The power had shifted completely. She no longer had a future to negotiate with. The house was gone, the money secured, the relationship erased. And still, she kept reaching, kept clawing at the air between us, trying to rebuild something I had already dismantled. I didn't need revenge in the loud sense. I didn't need to humiliate her in front of anyone. The quiet was enough. Watching her collapse under the weight of her own choices was the only answer I needed to give. Her last attempts weren't subtle. She showed up at my new apartment building one night, buzzing the intercom until a neighbor let her in. By the time she knocked on my door, I already knew she was there. I opened it just enough to look at her, then closed it again without a word. Her fists pounded on the wood, her voice breaking as she demanded I listen. I leaned against the counter, calm, until the sound faded into silence. Eventually, the hallway was empty again. The next morning, an email arrived. This time it wasn't apologies or accusations. It was bargaining. She said she would sign whatever I wanted, give up whatever claim she had left, if only I would talk to her. She said she couldn't understand how I could erase everything we had built together. The irony almost made me laugh. She had erased at the moment she thought a secret meeting with her ex would stay hidden. Her desperation only confirmed that I had played it right. Silence was not avoidance, it was strategy. Each unanswered message, each ignored knock, each closed door forced her to face herself. And facing herself was the one thing she had avoided all along. Meanwhile, I finished what I had started. The last boxes were cleared from storage. The belongings I no longer wanted were sold. The money added to the account she would never touch. I signed a lease for a new office closer to the city center. Everything she had once assumed was ours had been rewritten into mine. Friends who once asked questions stopped asking. They saw enough to understand that the story she told them wasn't true. Whispers about her nights out with her ex traveled faster than her excuses. The sympathy she had tried to collect evaporated. People pulled back, quietly, the same way I had. She was left alone with the noise she had created. One evening, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city lights, and my phone lit up again with her name. I let it ring until it stopped. Then another number. Then another. I silenced them all. By the time midnight passed, I had 30 missed calls stacked one after the other. Her panic was loud. My answer was silence. She wanted me to break, to speak, to argue. She wanted proof that I still cared enough to fight. But that was the one thing she would never get. I had no need to raise my voice. The quiet had already done the work for me. The end came not with a fight, but with paperwork. My lawyer called one morning to confirm the last signatures were processed. Everything tied to her name, our joint accounts, the last traces of shared property, was officially dissolved. Clean and final. She had nothing left to cling to. That same afternoon, I received one final message from her. It wasn't long. She said she couldn't believe how easily I had let her go, how quickly I had erased her. She said she never thought I was capable of such coldness. I didn't reply. There was no need. Her words were just an echo against a wall I had already walked past. I spent that evening reviewing the new balance in my account, the funds from the house sale, the clean ledger of my own future. The numbers weren't just money. They were proof of order restored. Proof that preparation and silence had carried me through the chaos she tried to create. A week later, I saw her by chance. She was standing outside a cafe downtown, her ex at her side, though they weren't laughing this time. She looked smaller, thinner, her face pale, her eyes darting like someone who had lost control of her own story. She spotted me across the street. For a moment, our eyes locked. She started to move toward me, her lips parting as if to speak. I turned and walked away before she could take a second step. That was all the closure I would ever give her. Friends asked if I ever regretted it, if I ever wondered what might have happened had I listened, had I given her one more chance. I told them nothing. Because the truth was, silence had been the only language that worked. Arguments could be twisted, explanations ignored. But silence was undeniable. She couldn't fight it, couldn't rewrite it, couldn't escape it. The final piece fell into place when the realtor called to confirm the house had closed at a higher price than expected. I had walked away not just with everything intact, but with more than I started. And she had walked away with nothing but her excuses. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply sat in my apartment, quiet and steady, while the weight of the past lifted off me. She had thought she could test me, play with time, leave me waiting. She had mistaken silence for weakness. But silence had been my weapon all along. The final act of silence wasn't a message, or a letter, or even a confrontation. It was simply absence. She had wanted me to stay tethered, to orbit her uncertainty, to wait for her decision. Instead, I vanished from her life like a shadow at sunrise. No explanations. No parting words. Just gone. Months passed. I settled into my new apartment, then into a new routine. My mornings began with quiet coffee on the balcony, watching the city wake beneath me. My evenings ended with order, with peace. The noise that had once filled every corner of my life, her demands, her doubts, her shifting excuses, was gone. What remained was clarity. Occasionally, I'd hear fragments about her through mutual acquaintances. She had tried living with her ex, but that fell apart quickly. She had moved into a smaller place on the outskirts of town, working longer hours, telling anyone who would listen that she had been blindsided. Her version of events always painted her as the victim, but the details never matched. Too many people had seen too much. And without my cooperation, her story couldn't hold. The truth was simple. I hadn't destroyed her life. She had done that herself. All I had done was refuse to carry the weight of it. One evening, I found myself driving past the old neighborhood. The house we once shared stood freshly painted, a family's toys scattered across the lawn. A different life had already taken root there. It wasn't ours anymore. It never would be. I didn't feel regret. I felt release. People often think revenge has to be loud, shouts, arguments, courtroom battles. But I learned that the quiet dismantling of a lie is far more devastating. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I didn't fight. I just moved, methodical and silent, until there was nothing left for her to hold on to. She once told me I wasn't decisive, that I played life too safe, that I was predictable. She believed she could betray me and I would wait. She believed I would always be there, steady and loyal, no matter what she did. And maybe she was right, until she wasn't. When the moment came, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I simply erased her from the life she thought was guaranteed. And when the dust settled, she was left staring at nothing, while I walked away with everything. That was my ending. Not a scream. Not a fight. Just silence. The kind that cuts deeper than words. The kind that says everything without speaking at all. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.